All right, so today we're going to be tackling something pretty big, faith. And I know it can be one of those kind of loaded words,
Oh, yeah, for
where
sure.
people use it all the time. But for this deep dive, we're going to look at how faith can really help you achieve your goals. We're going to be taking a look at an excerpt from How Can Faith Shape Your Future? Understanding Hebrews 11.1. And I think you might be surprised by some of the practical things we can get out of it.
Yeah, you know what's really cool about this article is how it starts out. It takes a look at Hebrews 11.1 through a bunch of different translations, and it kind of makes the case that even small changes in the wording can make a big difference in how we see this whole idea of faith.
It's so true, right? It's like looking at something through a different colored lens. Like
Mm.
the thing itself doesn't change, but how we see it does. So this article gives us four different translations: Word of Life, The Sower, Current English,
Yeah,
and good old KJV. And it's really interesting to see how they each bring out different parts of the verse.
definitely. Take the Word of Life translation, for instance. It says, believing in God is the substance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Hmm. The sower is really similar. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Current English actually adds, put your faith in God at the beginning. And then, of course, there's the King James. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen.
Wow. So much to unpack there. But I think no matter which translation you look at, that phrase, substance of things hoped for,
Yeah.
that's the part that really jumps out at me. It's like faith isn't just some vague wish or like hoping for the best. It's like there's something more solid there, more like a foundation to build on.
Yeah, it's almost like faith gives those hopes weight, makes them feel real and possible. And that's where the idea of having firm assurance comes in. It's not just hoping something will happen. It's like this deep, unshakable belief that it will happen.
It's like that example in the article about passing your driving test. Imagine you're so sure you're going to pass that you start looking at cars online, maybe even test driving a few. So it's like you're already living in that world where you've got your license, even though you haven't actually taken the test yet.
Exactly. It's like faith lets you experience the outcome in advance.
Yeah.
And that, in turn, can actually give you more energy to work towards it. Because if you really believe you're going to achieve something, you're more likely to put in the effort and make those sacrifices to get there.
So it's not just about sitting back and waiting for things to magically happen. Faith actually gets you moving.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I believe this is going to happen, so what can I do right now to make it real?
Exactly. And you know what else? The article actually says that this kind of faith is immune to doubt.
Yeah.
It's about holding on to that belief, even when other people might not get it, or, try to make you doubt yourself.
Yeah, like when people say, oh, good luck with that driving test. Not everyone passes the first time. But you're just so sure of yourself, so grounded in your faith that those doubts just don't even get to you. You're like, nope, not in my world.
It's amazing how powerful that unshakable belief can be. Because when you get rid of doubt, you make room for a whole different kind of energy, the energy of confidence, determination, unwavering focus on your goal.
It's like decluttering your mind to make space for the good stuff. And that actually ties in really well with that wedding preparation analogy from the article. If you have faith that you're going to get married, you start getting everything ready like it's already a done deal. They even talk about ladies learning to cook and buying linens.
It's such a great example of how faith can be so much more than just believing in something. It's a force that pushes you to prepare, to plan, to invest in that future you believe in. And it doesn't have to be just about weddings, of course. This applies to any goal or dream that's really important to you.
Absolutely. Whether it's getting your dream job, starting a business,
Yeah.
or buying your first house, that deep faith can be the fuel that keeps you moving forward. It's like you're already living in the after, even though the before isn't quite finished yet.
Exactly. And what's even more interesting is that this faith, it's not just about believing in what will happen, but also in who is making it happen.
Okay, now this is where things get really interesting. So the article describes faith as a declaration that God is faithful. So it's not just about believing in the outcome, but in the one who have the power to make it happen.
Exactly. It's a huge shift in how we see things. Instead of trying to make things happen through sheer willpower, it's more about surrendering to a higher power, trusting that there's a plan unfolding, even if we can't see the whole picture yet.
So it's not about controlling every little detail. It's about having faith that we're being guided,
Yeah.
supported, and ultimately led towards our dreams.
And that leads us to another really important point, how faith affects worry and fear. The article really stresses how true faith can actually wipe out these negative feelings.
Oh, I get that. It's like when you're a little kid and you trust your parents completely. They'll take care of you, protect you, and show you the way. So there's no need to worry or be scared.
That's a perfect way to put it, because when you put your trust in a higher power, you're basically saying, I don't need to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. I can let go of the need to control everything and just trust that I'm being taken care of.
And that's where that sense of peace comes from, right?
Right.
Because you're not constantly stressing about how or when things are going to happen. You're confident that it's all working out, even if you can't see the whole path ahead.
Exactly. It's like handing over the reins and trusting you're being steered in the right direction, even if you can't see every turn along the way.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you're always worried, are you really trusting? They seem like totally opposite ways of thinking.
You're right. Worry usually comes from a lack of trust, that feeling like we need to be in control to make sure things go our way. But faith invites us to let go of that control, to acknowledge that there's something bigger than us at work, making things happen in ways we might not totally understand.
So how does all this apply to us? To how we go after our own hopes and dreams? If faith is supposed to shape our future, where do we even start?
Well, the article doesn't exactly give us a step-by-step guide, but it definitely gives us some clues. It suggests that our belief, our conviction,
Yeah.
can actually shape our reality.
Okay, but how do we build up that kind of unshakable faith? It's easy to say just have faith, but it's not always that easy to actually feel it, especially when we're going through tough times or setbacks.
I think that's where faith as an action comes in. The article talks about how faith inspires preparation. It's not just passively waiting for something to happen. It's about taking steps that line up with what we believe.
So we're not just sitting around picturing our dream life.
Yeah.
We're actually doing things that bring us closer to it, putting our faith into action.
Exactly. And even if those steps seem small, they show that we have faith. It's like saying, I believe this is going to happen, so I'm going to start acting like it's already true. And I think that's a really empowering way to look at it.
It's like instead of saying, I'll believe it when I see it, we're saying, I'll see it when I believe it. We're choosing to live in that reality we want, even if it hasn't completely taken shape yet.
Exactly. And the more we act in line with our faith, the stronger that faith gets. It's a positive feedback loop. Our actions make our beliefs stronger, and our beliefs in turn fuel our actions.
And going back to those different translations of Hebrews 11.1, there was that emphasis on the conviction of things not seen. It's like faith requires us to believe in what we can't yet see or fully understand.
Yeah, that's a key point. Faith is about trusting that there's a bigger picture unfolding, even if we only have a tiny glimpse of it right now. It's about having the guts to step into the unknown, guided by our belief instead of what we can see.
Like trusting that the GPS is taking us to the right place. Even if we can't see the whole route, we might not know every single turn along the way, but we trust the system to get us there.
Perfect analogy. And sometimes that lack of knowing everything can be scary, but that's where faith comes in. It's like an anchor, that assurance that we're on the right path. Even when we can't see all the twists and turns ahead, it gives us the strength to keep going, even when things get tough. And that's really where the magic of faith is, right? It gives us the power to move forward, even when we're not sure what's coming next. It's not about pretending that everything's perfect or ignoring the hard stuff.
Yeah, it's more about facing those challenges head on with that deep down belief that we can overcome them, that we've got this inner strength, this guiding force. That's bigger than any obstacle we might come up against.
Exactly. And you know, it's interesting how the article talks about the difference between faith and things like blind optimism or wishful thinking. Like on the surface, they might seem kind of similar, but when you really look at them, there are some pretty big differences.
So what makes real faith different from just hoping for the best or, having a positive attitude? Where do we draw the line?
Well, I think blind optimism can sometimes be a way of avoiding reality. It's like putting on rose-colored glasses and pretending that the tough stuff doesn't exist. But faith is different. It acknowledges the challenges, but chooses to believe in a good outcome anyway.
It's like that saying, I believe it can happen. And I'm going to work like it depends on me. There's that element of action there,
Yeah.
of taking responsibility. That goes hand in hand with faith.
Exactly. And wishful thinking often misses that action part. It's passive, just hoping without actually doing anything. But faith inspires us to take those concrete steps towards our goals. Even if those steps seem small or insignificant at first, it's about making our actions match our beliefs.
That's walking the walk instead of just talking the talk. It's not enough to just say, we have faith. We have to show it through what we do.
Right, and that's how we start to build that unshakable conviction, that firm assurance the article talks about. It's through consistently taking action that lines up with what we believe, that we cultivate a deeper sense of trust in ourselves and in how our dreams are unfolding.
So it's not about some magical force that just makes things happen out of thin air. It's more about this beautiful connection between belief and action. We believe so, we act. And as we act, our belief gets stronger.
It's a powerful cycle. And I think that's where the real transformative power of faith is. It's not just about reaching our goals, it's about who we become along the way.
We become more resilient, more determined, more confident in our ability to handle whatever life throws at us. And that's a pretty amazing side benefit of developing our faith.
It really is. And it all comes back to that core idea of faith as the substance of things hoped for. It gives our dreams weight, makes them feel more solid, more real.
And that brings us to a really interesting question that the article asks at the end. If faith is the substance of things hoped for, what does that substance actually feel like?
That's a great question. Is it a feeling, a mindset, an action, or maybe it's some kind of mix of all those things?
Right, because when you think about it, it's not something you can physically hold or measure. It's more like this energy, a force that's inside us.
Yeah, and maybe that's why it's so hard to define or explain. It's something that's really personal, something you feel and experience, rather than just understand with your head.
It's like trying to explain what love feels like. You can talk about the effects, the actions, the emotions that come with it, but the core of it is something you feel on a much deeper level.
Exactly. And I think that's why the article leaves that question open. It's inviting us to explore what faith feels like for ourselves, to go beyond just thinking about it and tap into that inner knowing.
So it's not about finding one perfect definition or formula. It's about discovering how faith shows up in our own lives, in our own unique ways.
And I think that's an ongoing journey, a constant exploration that changes as we grow and change. The more we lean into that exploration, the more we understand the power of faith and how it can really shape our lives.
It's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion, uncovering deeper and deeper levels of understanding with each new experience.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And maybe that's the most important thing to take away from all this. Faith isn't some fixed idea. It's a dynamic process.
It's a journey that unfolds, over our whole lives, challenging us to grow, to trust, and to really step into, who we're meant to be.
Yeah, and maybe that's the ultimate point of Hebrews 11.1, right? It's like an invitation to embrace what we can't see, to trust in something bigger than ourselves, and to really step into, that reality of our hopes and dreams, powered by that force of faith.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into this whole idea of faith, we'll leave you with something to think about. If faith really is the substance of things hoped for, how can you make that substance more real in your own life? How can you make it more tangible?
That's a good question. What are some things you can do today, even small things, to make your actions match what you believe? What kind of mental shifts can you make to cultivate that deeper sense of trust and surrender?
Because at the end of the day, it's not about having all the answers
Yeah.
or, perfectly understanding faith. It's about taking that leap, trusting the journey,
Yeah.
and letting ourselves be guided towards that future we want.
Exactly. And you never know. Maybe as you start on that journey, you'll find that the most amazing miracles happen when we dare to believe